relations in the Midlands. And in fact, these questions and answers and solutions that we're seeking, it's not just the Midlands, it's South Carolina. Before I get into any more, I would like to ask the chairman of the board of Community Relations Council if she would come and give some greetings. Ms. Lou Nolan.
How are you folks tonight? Are you ready for a lively discussion?
Yes, we are.
Good for you. Good for you. Are you folks ready for some good information?
Absolutely.
Yes. Good for you. Are you folks ready for good information? Great. Okay, I'm not going to take up your time. What I'm up here for is just to welcome each of you and to thank these gentlemen for being a part of this, and to say thank each and every one of you for coming out tonight. The next time that you hear about one of these, please drag someone with you. We need to get the community hearing and listening to what we are doing. We need to get the Community Relations Council name out there. And why do we need to get it out there? We have a group of very dedicated people. We have a staff that is absolutely on the ball, on the job, every day, every hour. And we're fortunate to have Henry Baskins leading it. I'm not going to go around the room and name all of them. I hope that they will introduce themselves as the evening goes on and get to know you a little bit better. But there is one thing I'd ask you to do is put your paws together for a shout out for the staff of the Community Relations Council.
Thank you, Lou. We have some CRC board members, and I would like for the CRC board members to raise your hands so people can see who you are. Thank you so much for being here. And our board members, like most boards, this is a voluntary assignment, and they probably do feel sometimes like it's an assignment. And they work very, very hard to make sure that we stay true to what we've been called to do. Before I get into any more about the CRC, I want to take the time and introduce our panel for tonight's discussion and tell you that we're going to talk about economic development, or the economy, rather, and the impact race has on the economy from both the macro and a micro level. The gentleman sitting on the panel can talk to you a lot about what their area of expertise is, but there's going to come a time when I turn to the audience, and we're not just asking questions. What we're also doing is looking for solutions. So we have a scribe here tonight who will be taking notes. When I ask for your suggested solution to it, we're documenting that. And we will present what you have told us would be the best way to handle those problems to the government entity or to the organization that can best help us bring it about. So our panel today with us is Matt Kennel. Matt is with City Center Partnership. Nate Barber with South State Bank. We have Ryan Coleman. Ryan is with the City of Columbia Economic Development. Lee Cato is with the Chamber of Commerce. And we have Nelson Lindsay is with the Richland County Economic Development. So thank you very much, gentlemen, for being here tonight. Right now, I would like to call the chairman of County Council, Mr. Rush, to the front and ask him to give our opening remarks, and then we'll get into panel discussions. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Ms. Pastor. It's always great to be here. Well, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Hope everybody's doing well this evening. I think you have an esteemed panel of individuals here that will give you their expertise as it relates to the economy and how that relates to race. You know, when I was looking at some information, and I think it was 2011, they said that if blacks and Hispanics, if their salaries were equal to non-Hispanic whites, that there would be a $193 billion increase in the state and federal taxes. And it would have added $1.2 trillion to our GDP. That's significant. That's a significant growth. That's showing you where we need to be. It's showing you that we need to reach for equality. It's showing you that we need to not only reach for it, accomplish it. And I think events like this begin to, and I like what she said, we're looking for solutions, not just questions. It's looking for solutions. So I'm excited to be a part of this. I'm excited that Richland County is a part of this. And I look forward to hearing the solutions that are coming out of this event. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Good. Well, we're going to start off, and you opened up, Mr. Chairman, you opened up with a disparity in income. I was reading a document, and for full disclosure, I have shared some of the statistical information that I have received from the South Carolina Minority Affairs Office with most of our panel. The only panel member that didn't get the data is Nate Parker. Sorry about that, Nate. So you're on your own. One of the things that some of the data indicated that minorities in South Carolina make almost 50% less, bring home almost 50% less than whites. You can see how that would have a negative impact on our economy, on the economy in the local neighborhood, as well as the overall economy in the Midlands. So, gentlemen, and I'll pass the mic to you, who would like to be the first to address how can we fix what we see is an income disparity between whites and non-whites?
Well, I don't know how we fix that, but I can tell you it's certainly a problem. And as Chairman Rush pointed out, I mean, it really relates to not only social justice, it has real economic impact. I mean, if there's half as much money to spend, that affects our shops, it affects our restaurants, it affects the entertainment venues in our city. And if those are not successful, then less jobs are created, and that affects the whole economy. You know, I think one first step would be, you know, and it relates not only to race but to gender and everything else, is, you know, equal pay for equal work. It ought to be a tenet of everything we do in society. I'm from Newport News, Virginia, and I was just home over the weekend, and I was reading about the founding president of the shipyard, Homer Ferguson, Newport News Shipbuilding, and tremendously successful company. It's where aircraft carriers were invented and still built today, and those kind of things for our country. But one of the things he started, I think back in 1918, was equal pay for blacks, or as they were called back then, or African Americans. And it was absolutely a tenet of Newport News Shipbuilding from the beginning. And he gave that and his successors the credit for most of the shipyard's success over the years, because they were able to attract good workers that stayed with the company, that raised good families, and then their sons and daughters worked for the shipyard, and created a very positive economy for the Virginia Peninsula, which continues today. And I think that's certainly a good place to start for businesses and local governments to embrace that.
You know, thinking about this a little bit, I think what it boils down to is creating a fair and a level playing field for people in all walks of business, so that they have the chance and opportunities to compete and be competitive with their peers. So, you know, in order to help bring these wages up, I think you have to create opportunities where business owners can be competitive. And at the city, we've done things where we have things like the Mentor Protege program. These are programs that are designed for small women, minority-owned businesses, and it puts them in a position where they can learn from larger businesses. And as they continue to learn from that business, then they get competitive. As they get competitive and grow, then they can also grow their staff sizes and bring people on and pay them wages that are competitive. So I think fundamentally, just what you have to do is you have to make these opportunities available. You have to give businesses the capacity to grow, whether that be from a financial standpoint. And I think you also need to give them, training opportunities that are going to help them how to understand how to take their business to the next level. The challenges that a business will face in a growth phase could be completely different than what an entrepreneur will face when they're just getting their business started. I mean, it's a lot different to run a company that's got 50 people in it and is growing and going to the next level versus if you're getting started and maybe you've got 2 or 3 people working with you. So I think the biggest impact is just making sure that you can have resources readily available where you can help businesses with their growth and development, and just encourage them to kind of be aware what's going on, what is it going to take for me to get to this next level, and through that growth in the entrepreneurial community, then I think you will see the growth in the individuals and the personal incomes.
Anyone else?
Good evening, everybody, and I certainly want to congratulate the Community Relations Council. As a former director myself, I think you are really on the issue in Henry. I certainly want to congratulate you. I don't want to sound like we're members of a mutual admiration society, but it's good to work with you again. It's interesting, the old adage, the more things change, the more they stay the same. I have with me here a 40-year-old annual report done by the Community Relations Council. Matter of fact, I helped put it together. I was deputy director at the time. And we were looking at the same issues. How can blacks get a piece of the pie? And the main thing back then was, that was shortly after the sitting demonstration, that kind of thing. And it came to light, okay, once the trend was broken, we could sit at the lunch counter, but we didn't have the money to buy a hamburger. And we had to regroup and address the issue of economic development. And one of the things happened back then, which should happen now, is we develop a plan. You're not going to do anything without a plan. And if I may digress here just a moment, I certainly want to applaud the governor and her efforts in dealing with the issue, the unfortunate issues surrounding the killing of the persons in Charleston. What she did was studied the situation, immediately came up with a plan, the flag came down. Now what? We're having a series of meetings. My concern is, even with the prayer vigils, when the preacher says, amen, brother Lord, then what? Or when the chairman of the various committees say, meeting adjourned, then what? You've got to have a plan of action. And until such time you get the business community behind whatever it is you're trying to do, whether it's economic development, whether it's job expansion or whatever, it's going to be a very, 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 very difficult task. Now, we all know that small businesses run the economy. There's no joke. That's where the job creations are. According to the U.S. Census, 75% of the jobs created in America are created by small businesses. And that's what this channel here in particular is about, helping small businesses get started. And those that are already in business, to help them to expand, working with the City of Columbia, working with Richmond County. And when we talk about small businesses, in the greater Columbia area, you're talking about over 14,000 businesses. And that's a lot. And even if one business hired one person, just think of the impact, that would make. But you got to bring your issues to where it happens. In this room right here, the Community Relations Council, Richmond County, the City of Columbia, and the business community, they talk together, and the business community responded. And what you're going to find is the business community, this is a unique community here. When we had an issue of integrating, nobody on the city council looked like me, the people came together in the Chamber of Commerce and made it happen. Why? Because there was a plan. The 421 plan that ultimately passed, believe it or not, is still in place today. That's what I'm talking about, making a difference. You got to develop a plan. Same thing with integrating the private clubs downtown. There was a plan to do that, it just didn't happen. Members on Richmond County Council, there was a plan for all of that. So what I'm saying is, it's good to have all of these meetings and it's good to have the prayer visions, but when it's all said and done, we need to have a plan of action with goals and objectives and a timetable. That's what's going to make the difference.
Good evening. Yeah, I want to thank you for starting off with such an easy question. I'd love to sit up here and tell you that I have a solution for it, but Ryan touched on it briefly, and I think the key word there is opportunity, and to take advantage of the opportunities that come along. And the way to do that, and we talk about a lot in economic development, is being prepared for when that opportunity comes. So as a community, that means having, in our world, that means having industrial park, industrial sites ready, so when companies come looking, we are prepared for that opportunity. But it's not just on the community level, it needs to be on the individual level. And of course, that means having an educated citizenry so that when an opportunity arises, they have the ability to take advantage of that. And that means whether they go on to college or to get a job. And if they don't have the skill set either to advance to college or to take advantage of job opportunities when they come about, then we are doing a disservice to those citizens. So I think that's part of the solution, is to be prepared for when these opportunities come to us, both as a community and as individuals.
I was just resting up a little.
Yeah, okay.
Going in line with the issue of opportunity and preparation, I think part of the solution is the change in the belief system. Many of the people who are earning that lower income that you're talking about, well, many of them don't believe that they can make more money, that opportunity is there for them to do so. So part of what has to happen is their belief system has to change. The belief system at the top has to change also, is what Lee was referring to, and that we need to work with this group to help them develop the necessary skills that they need so that they can understand that that they can make a difference in their life if they make some changes. And when you talk with young folk and ask them what it is that they want to do, once you get past, I want to be a pro football or basketball type thing, and then you get to, well, I want to go to medical school. And you start laying out to them, you know what that means. You got to finish high school, then you got 4 years of college, then you got 4 years of medical school, then you got 4 years of residency. That timeline doesn't even flow with them. I mean, they can't even conceive of something that takes 12 to 15 years of preparation because they're concerned with making it from day to day. So part of it is the change in belief system that if you make some changes in your life, that there are some things that you can do that will have some long-term impact on your life.
Thank you. You can keep the microphone. I'm looking at a data, and one of the data points that we're going to put down, and what I heard constantly, is that preparation and training. Now, I understand that there are programs already out there. There are programs to train small businesses. There are programs to talk to folks who want to be entrepreneurs in a particular field. So what are we missing? If the programs are already there, what are we missing?
One of the key elements to be successful in business is, number one, you have to be well financed. And number two, you have to have access. If you're employees looking for jobs, you've got to have access to the larger companies, all the smaller companies you want. But if you're not well financed, if you're a business owner, it's going to be very, very difficult. Number two, you have to have access to larger companies who will be interested in your services or your products. You got to have your customer base, and without that, it's going to be very, very difficult.
Speaking of access, Nate, I want you to be thinking on this particular question. When you talked about being well financed, that comes back to the banking industry and some of the perceptions about the majority banks in the state.
You want me to finish?
No, you can finish that question. I wanted to say, he didn't have a chance to look at
Don't let me
the
answer
statistics.
banking questions. I guess what's missing, as you mentioned, the program, there's a tremendous amount of programs already in place, whether they're workforce training, through the technical schools, through the employment office. So there's a variety of programs in place. The problem is getting the word out to those that are in need and making that connection to them. I think a lot of it is also, we like to think it's a coordinated approach, but when you have this whole array of programs available, and even I sitting here today could not tell you every one of them, and I'm supposed to know exactly where all these programs are and the eligibility requirements, because it's a scattered approach. So ideally, there would be a more coordinated effort to provide that workforce training so that when a company has a need, we can make that connection with the person that has the skills, maybe not today, but has the ability to have those skills developed. And so I think it's a better coordination of the programs that are already in place.
And dissemination of the information.
Right, and getting the word out. I mean, it's great to have them in place, but if people don't know about it and take advantage of it, then it's a waste of time.
Thank you. Nate, answering the question about access to funding by small and minority businesses.
Prior to my coming to work with what was then South Carolina Bank and Trust, which is now South State Bank, I worked with the Small Business Development Center. So I worked with people who were interested in starting businesses. And it was quite strange coming over to the banking side. I mean, we spent all the time getting the business plan and getting them all ready to go and talk to the bank. But then when I got on the banking side of it, I saw that we really didn't care on the inside. I mean, because we started looking strictly at, what personal assets do you bring to the table? Because on the banking side, we don't do that type of lending. It's very difficult for us to lend unless we're in essence loaning your money back to you. But the other part, even before you get to the issue of money, is that we don't really, for the same group, the low income, low moderate income group, there's not an awful lot of stress on acquiring business skills. I mean, it just is not. I worked in the business school at Winthrop. I taught at the business school here at USC, and you just don't run across that many people of color that are trying to get business skills. And if it comes to someone who is trying to open a business, they really aren't waking up that day and deciding, I want to open a business. This is something, someone is doing it well. They've thought about it for a long time. They know it's going to take money to do that. It's going to be their money or love money or family money. It's going to be something that's typically not going to be money that's coming from a banking institution. And if you think about it from your perspective, I mean, the money that we loan out is your money as depositors. So when you come in there to get it, you want it to be there for you. So part of what we're trying to do is make sure we're making quality loans safe and sound, and that's just not the business that most banks are in. I mean, there's a little bit of that lending that goes on, but for all practical purposes, we're loaning your money back to you. So if you have it on deposit, and especially during the Great Recession, people would ask all the time, is your bank making loans? And I would jokingly say, yeah, we'll loan your money back to you. I was joking, but there was an element of seriousness with it also. So it's something that we have to realize. If you're going to go in business, that it's a skill you have to learn, just like you have to learn to do anything else. You wouldn't think of trying to be an engineer without getting engineering training. So if you're going to be a business owner, get the proper business training. You can do it through some certain programs. You don't always have to go through an academic program to get that training, but get it. And part of what you'll find out is that it requires a certain amount of money, and you got to figure out what is the best way to source it. Generally, the banks will be on the second go round, not the first go round.
Before we leave from a banking question, and I'm going to be totally open with you from what is perceived in the community, in the African American community. The perception is that majority banks will not loan to African Americans. That is a perception, right or wrong. What's your take on that?
An element of truth, and that it's difficult to lend. But again, the first thing that we do on the banking side is to look and see, do you bank with us? What kind of monies do you have on deposit with us already? That gives us some feel for what it is that you're likely to do with any new monies that you get. I mean, if you've never, and I don't know, in my time with small business development, the magic number seemed to be $100,000. I needed $100,000 to get going. I don't know where this number came from, but that was the magic number. And then you ask people, well, have you ever saved that kind of money before? Well, no. Well, have you ever paid back that kind of money before? Well, no. Well, how do you even have a sense for what $100,000 is? That's a lot of money to borrow without any real sense of who your customer base is and how to properly market. So it becomes difficult. Do we make loans to minority business people? Yes. Is it difficult? Yes. It is difficult, but do we do it? I mean, on the bank now, I work on the community reinvestment, community development side of the bank. We get measured every, depending on your cycle, 3-4 years by our regulators to see what kind of small business lending we're doing. Are we lending into minority geographies? Are we loaning to low, moderate income individuals? So we're measured on this. So we're trying our best to do it. All we can do is to do it in what is considered safe and sound banking practices. And if we're not doing that, then you don't get your money when you come back to get it out of the bank. It's not there because we've loaned it out. Of course, our bank is not going to be there either. You know, and you saw this over the last few years. There were a lot of banks that disappeared. Just think about right here in this community, and that is why they made bad loans.
I wanted to offer Lee Cato a chance to respond to that. Lee, you work with small businesses. You've heard what they had to say about their access to capital, and I'd like to hear your comment.
Well, like I indicated earlier, if you're not well financed, it's very, very difficult. However, as far as what we do here is we try to work to address the main problem, and that is, are you prepared to go into business? To look at your customer base. If you want to go into business selling apples, where are you going to put your business? And then we in turn can help you perhaps find funding. Okay? We talk to many banks. As you know, many banks and all members, for the most part, are members of the Chamber of Commerce. And if there is a business who is suffering financially or otherwise, they can come to us and we can assist them, perhaps direct them to a bank who is interested in minority, women, lending to small business, that kind of thing. All banks are not necessarily interested in doing business with small business, but there are some that are, and those that are, we certainly we keep their doors staying open. And one of the problems with small businesses is so many of them, as Nate said, so many of them fail. And they fail generally because, well, many of them live out of the cash register. And number two, many of them are underfinanced. And those are the two basic heavy problems.
I want to read some statistics. African American businesses account for 12.2% of all minority businesses in South Carolina. African American businesses account for 2.9% of all minority firms with paid employees. African American businesses account for $312,628,000 in total business annual payroll. This amounts to 0.6% of all minority payrolls activity in South Carolina. Now, I see those numbers, and I see businesses going up all the time. And I'm saying there is a systemic problem. There's a systemic problem. Businesses are failing at an unprecedented rate in minority neighborhoods. And when they try, as I hear it, when they try to make the next step, they don't have support. What I hear you're saying is that they're not trained, or they're not taking advantage of opportunities that are there, or they don't know what opportunities are there, and we need to do a better job of educating them on what's available for them to train them to be successful. Any comments on that?
Well, I'd like to weigh in on this just a little bit because we touched on something just a while ago, but I want to expand on it a little bit. And I think there's a large amount of preparation assistance that we could be giving entrepreneurs and people who are starting businesses, helping them prepare for long-term success instead of a quick open and close. And I see this happen across the board. I've seen it many times. I've seen somebody come in, find a location they like, it's a great location, and sign a lease without even doing due diligence and checking to see, is that location properly zoned for the type of business I'm doing? So, it's great to be an entrepreneur. It's great to have an idea to want to start a business, but you have to set yourself up for long-term success. You've got to do your homework on the front end. Otherwise, it's going to be a 6-month and an open and close. And we wrestle with that a lot at the city. I think we're always looking to try to identify people that are starting businesses. We want to be involved with businesses from that process. We can help people out. I can tell you if you can move to that location or not. We can sit there and talk with you about what is your target market. What's your demographic? Do you have a marketing plan? Do you even have 6 months of contingency saved up just in case your opening doesn't go the way you think it is? I mean, you need something to kind of lean on until you build your business